Why no contact hurts a narcissistic woman more than she expected. When you stop chasing a narcissistic woman, something inside her constructed world begins shifting. She expected your attention to remain available, even after she treated your feelings carelessly. She may have believed your empathy guaranteed endless patience, forgiveness, understanding, and repeated opportunities. But no contact removes the emotional supply she quietly depended upon every single day. Suddenly, she cannot easily measure your feelings through your messages, reactions, or desperate attempts. That uncertainty can become deeply uncomfortable because control often depends upon predictable emotional responses. When you stop responding, she loses access to reassurance she previously received from you. She may wonder whether you are angry, healing, moving forward, or finally becoming indifferent. And that final possibility can feel especially threatening to someone accustomed to emotional influence. Your silence creates something she cannot manipulate, unanswered questions about your intentions and feelings. Before no contact, she could often predict exactly how you would respond after conflict. She knew which words might trigger guilt, sympathy, anger, fear, or another emotional reaction. When those familiar buttons stop working, her relationship strategy suddenly becomes far less effective. This does not necessarily mean she misses you in the healthy way you imagine. Sometimes she misses the attention, validation, control, emotional access, or admiration you consistently provided. That distinction matters because missing someone's presence differs greatly from genuinely valuing their well-being. No contact forces that distinction into the open because your emotional availability suddenly disappears. She may initially interpret your silence as temporary, expecting you to eventually return again. Perhaps she assumes your discomfort will eventually force you to send another message first. Maybe she expects loneliness to weaken your boundaries before her own discomfort becomes overwhelming. But when days become weeks, her expectations may begin confronting an increasingly unfamiliar reality. You are no longer participating in the emotional cycle she once understood so well. There is no argument to win, no reaction to provoke, and reassurance to collect. Instead, there is silence. And silence gives her fewer opportunities to control the narrative. This can create frustration because she cannot easily determine what you are thinking anymore. She may replay previous conversations, searching carefully for clues about where everything changed there. She might analyze your final message repeatedly, looking for hidden meanings or emotional openings. Sometimes, this uncertainty can lead her toward testing whether you still remain emotionally reachable. She might send a casual message that appears innocent on the surface to you. The message could involve a random question, forgotten item, shared memory, or simple greeting. Its real purpose may be discovering whether the emotional door remains slightly open again. If you immediately respond emotionally, the old pattern can restart surprisingly quickly once again. But calm distance communicates something completely different without requiring any dramatic confrontation from you. It communicates that access to your emotions is no longer guaranteed whenever she wants. That realization can be powerful because narcissistic dynamics often depend upon maintaining emotional availability. When you reclaim your attention, you also reclaim something far more valuable: yourself completely. Your silence becomes less about punishing her and more about protecting your emotional stability. That difference changes everything because healthy boundaries do not require revenge, cruelty, or punishment. No contact is strongest when you stop secretly waiting for her reaction every day. If you remain obsessed with whether she misses you, you are still emotionally connected. True detachment happens when her response becomes less important than your own inner peace. That is often the moment the dynamic begins losing its previous power over you. She may notice significant changes in your behavior that she never expected to see. You might become calmer, more focused, less reactive, and increasingly comfortable with your independence. Your life can slowly become larger than the relationship that once consumed your attention. And that transformation may become more unsettling than your silence ever was before today. Because now, she is not simply losing your attention. She is losing emotional influence. She may realize that the version of you who constantly explained yourself has changed. The person who once chased closure may no longer need her explanation anymore today. The person who once feared abandonment may finally become comfortable walking away completely alone. This can challenge the assumptions she formed about how easily you could be controlled. However, do not mistake every return attempt for genuine transformation, accountability, or emotional maturity. Someone can return because they miss access without understanding the damage they previously created. Real change requires accountability, consistent behavior, empathy, genuine respect, and patience with your boundaries. Without those qualities, renewed contact may simply reopen the same painful emotional cycle again. That is why your focus should never be making her hurt emotionally again today. Your focus should be becoming strong enough that her behavior no longer controls you. When you stop seeking validation from her, something remarkable begins happening inside yourself again. You start hearing your own thoughts without constantly filtering everything through her reactions anymore. You recognize patterns that previously confused you, including manipulation, inconsistency, and emotional unpredictability clearly. You begin understanding that love should never require abandoning your dignity, identity, or peace. No contact then becomes more than silence. It becomes a declaration of emotional independence. You are saying that access to you requires respect, consistency, honesty, and genuine reciprocity. Whether she understands that message is ultimately less important than whether you understand it. Because the deepest victory is not watching someone regret losing you eventually anymore today. The deepest victory is realizing you no longer need their regret to feel valuable. So if you choose no contact, choose it for healing rather than emotional revenge. Let your silence create space for clarity, recovery, boundaries, and stronger sense of self. Remember, walking away does not mean you stopped caring sometimes. It means choosing yourself. When your peace becomes more important than their reaction, the old cycle loses power.